Good evening, Tony Datino on Wednesday. We are already into July 6th, and I'm thinking today, my goodness, when are we going to do 4th of July celebrations? And then, it's July 6th. They're over. Fireworks are done, and off and go. People are traveling and during their vacations and taking their trips, and off we go. So I'm sitting at the pool over the holiday, and I'm reading the current issue of Saturday Evening Post, the July-August issue. And lo and behold, there's a fantastic article I'm reading, one pager. It was simple. It grabbed it. The age, excuse me, the age could be the act of distraction. And what happens when we inundate our brains with too much information and what's physically happening inside of our thinking process. And I think of this when we focus on the USA Memory Competition. And we have a series of different events, some of which are on speed, where we give them minutes to remember names and faces, and minutes to remember lines of poetry, or minutes to remember strings of numbers. But the interesting part about that is the mental athletes that compete in the event have all had some form of memory training. They've all begun to train their brain in a way that allows them to be efficient as well as effective. And so not only are they remembering things in a timely way, but they've trained their brains to do it in a quick way. But here's what goes on in the real world. And so this really gets to be a challenge when you look at people in a healthcare environment that are triaging patients in an emergency room, or taking notes when they're talking to patients about their symptoms and their diagnoses, or looking at their scans and their MRIs and their CT scans and their X-rays, and then trying to talk to the patient. They've got somebody beeping them on their beeper, and somebody grabbing them that needs to get something from them. And I got things are coming at us from so many different places. So here's what comes out of a study done by King's College at London University. They're finding now that people have access to cell phones, and an average person checks their phone 110 times a day, and nearly once every 6 seconds in the evening. My God, I leave my cell phone on the counter after dinner, and that's where it stays. I may glance at it before dinner, and if I do, it's mostly to see how the baseball scores are lining up and how the Yankees are doing. But think about that, 110 times a day, and you're doing it every 6 seconds during the evening. It's like, my God, you'd be bombarded. So God knows how could you put focus. And they're saying that this is the equivalent to losing 10 to 15 points of your IQ, and it's worse than if you were smoking marijuana. And yet we've got this thing in our hands. How often are we looking at it? My goodness, I sit at the swimming pool, and that's all I see with people around the swimming pool is and I'm sitting at the pool, and I'm reading my magazines, and I'm looking at what's going on, and I'm loving the kids that are playing and the noise and the laughter that they're having. And we wonder what's happening to our brains and our memories, our ability to comprehend and to absorb information. And we start to think of it as being a problem with our memory, as opposed to a problem with so many firings coming at us from what we're seeing, from what we're hearing, what we're ringing at, what we're looking at, what we're then listening to. So I watch people there all the time. They're looking at their phone and they're talking to someone next to them. Do you think they really know what the person next to them was saying? That they'll remember it, especially if it's anything meaningful on the way out or later on, saying, well, gee, didn't we just have this conversation? And I had this with someone today who was present during a conversation I was having with someone. And we were going back over what plans are for the next day. And I said, but you were standing there when we were having the conversation with Joe and Mary, and you were part of that conversation, but maybe you really weren't. Maybe you were just standing there in body, but not in mind. Because this was the whole conversation we had, and you should know the answer to the questions you're now asking. The problem with all of this, they gave an example of people in housekeeping where they increased the efficiency, or they were trying to increase the efficiency of housekeepers from 15 rooms per shift to 20 rooms per shift. And what do you think happened? The injury rate rose to 70% of the housekeepers cleaning rooms during a shift were injuring themselves in some fashion or another, which then in effect slowed them down. What do hospitals do? What's acceptable in a hospital environment? What happens when a caregiver is trying to read something, is trying to observe and look at their computer screen from a test result, and the patient's talking, and the family member is asking questions to the natural overload? So what it goes on to say is that there's a natural and easy buffer against letting the stress of speed and the steady stream of distraction overwhelm us. Simply slow down. And therefore, slowing down allows you to absorb faster and do what you need to do correctly, and not having to go rush through things and do things incorrectly and therefore have to go back over them. Researchers at Princeton, I think we've all heard of that, and University of California in Los Angeles found that students who hand wrote lecture notes, now who would ever think of this in today's day and age? Students that are handwriting lecture notes rather than typing them out retain more information than any other fashion. And what we've discovered in our work in memory is, and if you write your lecture notes written down and put them into mind map formats, it even doubles your enhancement of what you're able to comprehend, not only because you're hearing, you're writing, you're seeing, but you're grabbing the key concepts and you're putting them on major branches, and it's enhancing your ability to grab them and pull them back out. A keyboard transcription does not require critical thinking. So if you think about it, you're just sitting there and you're typing your notes, or you're recording it, you're trying to hear it, it doesn't require anything of slower down processing. Whereas in handwriting, not everything is captured, and therefore the brain has to exert more effort to capture the essence of what is being communicated, thus enhancing memory. So we wonder why sometimes our students, our kids, our grandkids are just having a much more difficult time in studies, and maybe it's the teacher. We may think of it as being COVID, but certainly the lack of social interaction, maybe team communications and exercises all may have some bearing on it. But recognizing that in the act of handwriting notes and putting down key words and putting them on paper, right? Putting them down on paper makes a world of difference in slowing down. First, I have to hear it, then I have to translate it. I've got to put it into my thinking, into my motor skill, and then I write it and I see it. My goodness, what am I doing? I'm exercising multiple senses, which studies have found the more senses we use in the conversion of information coming into our brain, the longer it lasts, the more creative comprehension we have, the more creativity that we can generate through the use of it. And yet everything is speed. Everything's got to be fast. Everything's got to be done. And yet we don't realize that in the speed, in the holistic fashion, speed in the holistic fashion may mean from the beginning to the end of getting something done and getting it done well. Slowing down doesn't mean you just go slow. It means that you take a few minutes to absorb what you're seeing. You pick up details, patterns, and relationships, and all those nuances help you to ensure that you're getting the total package of information, which then gives you more links and more of these dendritic spines that we talk about. It allows you to make more of those connections and allows you to make more of a holistic picture that then gives you the different nodes and the different branches that you want to retain and recall. I just thought this was fantastic, the age of distraction, and do we ever stop and think about that and its impact on our memories? This is Wednesday. We've got through half the week. We'll check back in with you on Friday, so have a good rest of the week, and we'll see you then.